Well, Jessica Hiltabidel joins us now. She's the Director of Culture, Equity, and Access at a school in the state of Maryland. Jessica, our reporter there made a reference about property taxes. For our viewers abroad who might not know, how does that relate to schools?
It's a great question. So when schools get their budgets, they get them from the larger city budget or the larger state budget, and a lot of that comes from taxes from the people. Everybody says, I contribute to the taxes. That's how we fund a lot of our public institutions, including public schools. So if there are less individuals and less per student funding that we get from the federal government, then to supplement that, local districts increase their property taxes so that they can continue to fund the schools at the same level at the per student rate.
So what happens to things like school diversity when those with means relocate to their second homes?
Well, you see an influx of a specific type of individual, whether they come from a place of privilege. And so when you're looking at schools that are celebrated for their diversity, a lot of times we hear the phrase of white flight. Now, it's not always white flight. I do want to clarify that, but the diversity does suffer. We have, different schools, students that come from low socioeconomic backgrounds, which we know are disproportionately represented by children of color and families of color in that situation. They are staying in the urban settings, whereas other individuals who do have a second home or do have the means to travel, or even just have family in second locations that they're going to depend upon for help with childcare while they're out of work or things of that nature, it certainly has an effect on the demographics of an individual school and the larger cities.
Talk a little bit, if you can, about the financial burden of all of the safety measures that schools reopening have as they're trying to put those in place. Obviously, we know that school budgets are often extremely tight.
Yeah, schools are underfunded across the country. And many of them depend upon their families or parent associations to help supplement the costs, even funding teacher positions, or certainly for things such as the arts. The school that I'm at is actually here in DC, Washington, DC, and it was something we started looking at from the very beginning. We were trying to play with three different factors. One was maintaining the rigorous academic components that we have. The second was making sure we had safety protocols, and then looking at the social services that schools provide, everything from lunch services and healthcare for school-based mental health programs and things of that nature. And so when you're looking at a situation like COVID-19 and the coronavirus, all of the research has said that in order for schools to open, they have to open safely. And what that means is that's going to have a bottom line impact on your staffing level. So if you're going to open schools and students are going to come in person, suddenly class sizes are dropping from 20 to 25 or even 30 to 35 all the way down to 8 to 10. What that means is you have to have more individuals that you're paying to instruct those students in person. You also have to consider the personal protective gear and environment that comes into play. You have to modify school classrooms. Some schools are turning their libraries into classrooms just so they can have enough space. All of that comes out of a bottom line somewhere.
And many students have started the school year with remote learning. What are some of the challenges in that and perhaps the long-term consequences?
Anytime you start a school, there's challenges, but they're certainly incredibly exacerbated when you're starting virtually. At the Inspired Teaching Demonstration School, we start as early as preschool, which is 3 years old. We have universal preschool here. And so when you're talking about a student logging onto a computer for the first time ever as their first experience of school, there's going to be challenges. When we have virtual learning, we're dependent upon the technology that we have. When it comes to students even just getting access, we've had individuals who are depending on community Wi-Fi services and have not been able to access the internet so that they can then access the curriculum and the content that the teachers are providing. It also completely shifts the way that you build a school community and a school culture from the beginning. A lot of schools depend upon responsive classroom models or community building models where you're looking to establish classroom routines and procedures, where you're looking to develop connections between your students and get to know them as individuals. And that becomes a lot more challenging when you only have limited contact with them or when you're dependent upon a computer or technology situation.
Jessica Hiltabidel, thank you for joining us with your insight.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.